Hey guys, welcome. It is Tuesday. Thanks so much for showing if you're watching live or you're the replay game. I am just excited you're spending like 15 and 20 minutes with me. So, this is episode 14. And let me hide this question first. We're going to be talking about the global south rising up. And global south is something I just came into knowledge about like 3 months ago, but it is a thing that I was ignorant of, and I wanted to share with y'all because not only is it something that I know about, but apparently is going to affect our lives if we live, I guess, in the global north, which is America, Russia, and Europe. Next, we're going to talk about is employment trends in 2025 so far. We're almost 6 months in, which means half the year is almost done. And there are some trends that we are seeing from recent changes that I think are worth talking about. And then I want to talk about the idea that we may not have a Hollywood like we thought. Growing up, if you're a millennial like me or older, because it stopped a little bit after Gen Z, not going to lie. But Hollywood shapes our life as Americans. It's been around probably around 100 years, and I don't know if it's going to be around the same capacity the next 100 years. So my first community question is, do you think America will be the world leader in 20 years? And I'm going to pop that question up on the screen for the replay gang or anybody who comes in late. And that's a yes or no answer. I told myself, so I couldn't be in the middle. And I told myself that unfortunately, no. And that is shocking, right? Because I think Americans are self-centered and we think that we are like everything revolves around us, but it's quickly turning out to be that may not be the case in the future. And y'all will see from my slides in a little bit that the tides have been turning on that sentiment for a long time. Yeah. And that's because there is an economic divergence that is happening, and it's happening from the global south. On this picture on the right, the global south is highlighted. So that's Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. I didn't know what Oceania was, but over here. And the global north is America, Canada, Russia, and Europe, which they have always dominated like news cycles and things like that. But apparently, the global south is changing the tide, and they're doing that. And what is especially significant about that is that these places are mostly, if not all, formerly colonized, but now they are capitalizing. And I will say, as of late, what was on my radar was that Africa definitely is changing the tides. They are kicking France out of their countries and overall continent. There's some, what do you call it? Some unrest down here in South Africa because the government is like taking away lands from like I'm gonna say white settlers. I don't know another way to say it, but that is causing beef. But people in Africa are wanting their land back. There's like a multi-country alliance that is forming in the western part of the country it involves Burkina Faso, Mali, possibly the Congo, and I think possibly Senegal. They are strategically strengthening themselves to be independent, and they are resisting Western help. I will say they're not resisting Russian help, and they're not resisting Asian help, but they want their country back, and I could understand. Another reason why they're saying that there's a new economic divergence happening out of the global south is because they have all the workers. They have 2/3 of the working population. So I'm thinking that's anybody between 18 and like 50. Those are your workers. Those are the people who want work so they can try to control their destiny. And that happened a lot in America, but America has gone away from manual work. They've gone to more intellectual work, which is fine. But even now, we're seeing issues with that, with tech layoffs, with layoffs of things that are not tech. And we haven't been strong in manufacturing for the last 50 years. And these companies are taking advantage of that. Also, another reason why there's possibly a new economic divergence is that these lower countries, and I say that the ones that are placed more south geographically, they provide 35% of the gross domestic product of the world. And they also provide 40%. That's a typo. They provide not of GDP, but they provide 40% of the rare metals. And us as Americans, we need those metals, and we have not done any investment to see if, I guess, we have them locally. But the way we've been treating other countries, they're not into like sharing it with us. And that's something that's a consequence of our actions, good or bad. So in the past, this has been the world order. It used to be America made the rules, Japan funded the world of those rules, and then China manufactured it. I'm a history major lately, so I can back that up. Japan, even though they don't really have they're very stealth. They don't like attention like that. But Japan, they are so smart and they just get to business. They do what they need to do. And I guess in building their economy after World War II, they never looked back. They made sure they were strengthened as much as they could economically, government-wise, their people, they invest in their people, blase swaze. And because of that, when they had extra money, they funded a whole bunch of international investments. So they fund a lot of our governments. They fund a lot of European investments. So they are the funders of the world historically. And then China, the last 80 years, has been the manufacturer. In America, we used to be big on manufacturing, but for whatever reason, I'm not here to talk about why they got rid of those jobs. And now we're dealing with the consequences. Good evening, East Boogie. Thanks for always showing up. Appreciate you. Please like this video and thank you in advance. Now, so that was the past. In the past, we had America making the rules, Japan was funding it, and China was making stuff. Sorry. But now, who's making the rules? Now, as American, we want to say we're making the rules. Probably Europeans like to think that they have some type of sway, but really after World War II, Europe lost that. United Kingdom was no longer ruling the world, and we got that. They had to hand the torch to us, begrudgingly or not. Europe was not like the king of the world. America has since been, and I guess as Americans, we think we're gonna stay that way. That's why I put a question mark. I don't know. Who's funding the world now? Surprisingly, Germany. Did y'all know that? I bet y'all didn't know that. I didn't know that either. But Germany is having a lot of their money put into international investments and being the capital providers. And we're in a world where we were so used to China manufacturing stuff. You know who's manufacturing stuff now? India. Yeah. So I argue that in the future, we may not be the people that make the rules in America. I know our government wouldn't like to think that, but there are other signs as to why that's the case. And the shift is happening because countries are moving away from America. And a key way to know is that they have been moving away from English since 2018. It's 2025. It used to be that every other country had to learn English just in case they would have to do business with English. A lot of these countries, especially the BRIC nations, they are no longer putting English in front of their language. And remember, I was talking to you a little bit about Africa. Them African countries are saying, anybody who wants to do work with us, y'all need to learn our language. We're not learning French. We're not learning English. You want to do business with us, you're going to learn our language, right? Another thing that is causing this shift is the American tariffs that are happening in 24. We pissed off a lot of people, and things can't be cut off cold turkey right away. That's why they've kind of been walked back by America, but the other countries need us too. But you best believe them people are planning to not need us as much. The next administration, the administration after that, which leads me to say that there are opportunities to be had, but they may not be in the places that we think, like New York City and Silicon Valley. According to this article that I read in Bloomberg, they are saying the opportunities are elsewhere, like Brazil. Brazil is staking to be a city of economic opportunity. So if you are a worker, no matter where you're from, if you're part of those 2/3 of workers that are in the global South, you're not necessarily trying to move to America. You're trying to move to Brazil. You're also trying to move to Mexico. Now, I don't know about Brazil, but I know I'm interested in Mexico. I'm very interested in Mexico because I could survive in Mexico. I pretty much speak Spanish for the most part. I understand most of it. And I always knew that I needed to learn Spanish because I'm from Miami and it has served me well. But yeah, I'm going to start looking into opportunities because it might not be that America is where it's at. Like, and if that means I have to invest my money and be an international investor and be looking at their news, Mexican news, African news. I've been looking at African news because I have a love for Africa. So I'm just attracted to know what's going on there. But yeah, India, Saudi Arabia is another place apparently that's coming on the up and up. Another sign is that India will be making 65% of iPhones in 2026. China wasn't expecting that, I bet. But what did America do? Because of the tariffs and our animosity towards China, they kind of skirted it. They're not bringing it back to, I'm about to say Miami. They're not bringing it back to America, but they compromised and brought it to India. I don't know how our government feels about that, but they found a loophole. The article in Bloomberg said the leaders in several things are going to determine who's going to emerge as the leaders in our economic system. And we need to be looking at leaders in energy, manufacturing, and political power. And they slate these 5 countries to be that: India, Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. So as for us, we don't have to do necessarily anything drastic, but if you are looking to fortify your financial foundation and your political foundations, it's worth looking at businesses and investments and even content making opportunities in these other countries. If you're willing to move, that'd be great. Even if it's for like 10 years of your life. That's what a lot of people do for America. They come here, make their money, and they go back to their home country. All I'm saying is I'm keeping my eyes open, and don't be surprised if you see me in Mexico, maybe, or Africa. Those are the places I'm looking at. Now we're going to talk about employment trends, kind of similar to what we were talking about over here, where jobs are going to be considered. They're not necessarily going to be considered over here in New York City and Silicon Valley. I think if you were betting on that for tech, you could be hurting yourself because these companies are proving that they do not care. They will let you go at the drop of a dime. But I found this post on Yahoo Finance where they were comparing last year to last month. So it's a 12-year comparison to last month, but it is something to be aware of. And they were seeing signs that were somewhat good, but also somewhat bad. So some of the signs that we're seeing about employment trends is that in May 2025, they added 135,000 jobs, which is good. And unemployment is holding steady at 4.2%. That's also good. But the GDP fell for the first time since 2022, and that is 3 years, right? So that's something to think about. That just tells me that people are nervous about spending their money because they are nervous about their employment status. Some symptoms that we're seeing in the employment world is that the streets are saying that the job market is extremely hard. If you go on social media, Instagram, what is that thing called? Indeed, TikTok, Facebook, a lot of people are unhappy with their jobs. The thing is, that never happened before, is that if you wanted to look for a job, you're finding it very hard to secure one. So it used to be quit that job, get you another job. Now people are saying who have done that or have been laid off, keep your job until you find another one, because these people are looking for jobs 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, on the way to 3 years. And I can only imagine that is demoralizing mentally. Another symptom that you'll see is that real estate agents are moonlighting. I am experiencing that now. I've recently met someone at my job. She's a real estate agent, but she has a lot of listings and she says they're not selling. So homegirl needs to pay her bills right now. And it's not just real estate agents, it's everybody in real estate, in the real estate industry. So title agents, loan officers, they only get paid off commission, and people are not buying houses because houses are expensive, and people don't want to be locked into 3,000, 4,000 mortgage responsibilities if they're not sure their job is going to keep them. And we're still seeing layoffs being reported every quarter. The one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in the show is in the entertainment industry with like a major TV company. Layoffs are still being reported. And I don't remember a time when it was like this constant. At least once every month, unfortunately, layoffs are being reported. So when you look at these two stats here, you have how employment has changed since last year. And they just show like in the green, things are going up. In the red, the jobs are leaving, right? And then the second one is how employment has changed since last month. I just made a note of the top three and the bottom three. So for the whole year, the top three was healthcare, government, and hospitality. Now we can stop right there because healthcare has always been said, if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, you got a safe job. I would like to argue with y'all and say that I don't think healthcare is as safe as it used to be. I'm gonna write that down. Is healthcare a safe? As someone who used to work in the healthcare industry for 10 years, I'll say, it was lucrative, but I saw a lot of things that were not safe. And now with Medicaid and Medicare being on the chopping block, I'm being educated by other people that is what kept a lot of healthcare establishments and jobs secure, because you could at least get funding from the government, and these businesses, which are hospitals and hospital networks, could still fund things. Now when that's happening, that's going to change. And you know what's going to happen? These hospitals are going to get stricter with doctors. And they might let doctors go. They might let nurses go. And they're saying that, you know, if like they don't have Medicaid, they can't move people out of beds. They're not going to have numbers, and they're going to either refuse treatment. If you refuse treatment, then you can't pay the people that are there. So it's just a lot of things. I'm not necessarily sure that healthcare is as safe as people think it is, which is a catch-22, because a lot of times when people go into healthcare, it's because they're going to get paid a lot of money, and going to school, going into debt for a lot of that money makes it worth it. But now if it's not worth it, I know when I was working in pharmacy, I started at 50 an hour. I left at 65, but the new hires, the ones that had the degree, they were hiring the new hires, the one that had the degree, at like $40. Excuse me? I'm not going through the degree getting into all this debt to start at $40. No. So I don't know if healthcare is as safe as it used to be. What else? So then the bottom three. Oh, and what struck me as interesting is top three was government. You know, in this last month, the government is way over here at the bottom. And that's because of what this administration is doing. Like all these government jobs, that is the most striking difference between the whole year and this last month. Government jobs are in the bottom three. And I foresee that to keep happening because, number one, they're not going to be as attractive to want to go if you just know that you can be fired. People aren't going to apply. You know what I'm saying? And that is a stark difference between what has been the norm for probably hundreds of years. Like a government job used to be stable if you ever got one. So the bottom three from the last year is manufacturing, professional services, which I don't really know what that means. And I made a typo. I don't know what this last. Information. I don't know what that means either. What does information mean? But according to the administration, everything that we're going to do with the tariffs is going to get these manufacturing jobs up. But if we compare last month, what is also in the bottom three? Still manufacturing. And I won't say that, but manufacturing is still down. Even with all we're doing with these tariffs, manufacturing is still down. So how has it helped? The top three for the last month is healthcare still, hospitality. I can believe that. Hospitality was also top three. So I guess hospitality is just like always kind of been strong. Now I'm in hospitality. I can see it. People be coming to my job all the time. And I think because I work at a more affordable restaurant. So it's like the only place you could go and with your family and still eat out, and it's somewhat affordable. Top three is financial services. And I was like, so what's the difference between financial services and professional services? I think financial services means you're in big banking. So if you are in what's that called? Investment banking, hell yeah, you're doing right these last 6 months, these last 4 years. Yeah, you're doing fine if you're an investment banker. I haven't heard them being affected um ever, really. That's why people like to get into it, because it's very lucrative. The bottom three is professional business services. I imagine, I don't know what that is. Like, probably like maybe small businesses, business owners. Retail's doing bad. I can believe that too, because I'm not shopping. I want to shop. I'm gonna start shopping, I think, the last half of the year, but I'm not shopping. And this is just like what we're seeing. Manufacturing's still not doing well. I think that's something to know. And I also think we should know healthcare might not be as safe as it used to be. And we also need to know them government jobs are not as safe and reliable as they used to be either. I think that's what we can take away from the employment trends. And then the last thing is that Hollywood is struggling. Ever since they had that strike a few years ago, it has never been the same. That strike lasted like 6 months, right? And I was so proud of them for defending themselves. And even though it took about 6 months and it was a hard process, they did etch out the writers. I think they did first. They etched out a good deal for them to protect themselves and to protect their livelihood for the next at least 15 years or so. And then I think it was like the actors that did it afterwards, they procured the same fate. Like they fought and won because they're like, we're not playing with y'all. But do you know what these executives did? They were sneaky and said, okay, we're going to supposedly pay y'all. But then they made actions to move the jobs. So in their head, they're like, I mean, we're going to pay y'all, but y'all aren't going to have jobs to be paid. And that is so grimy. It's to the point where the president, Trump, is threatening tariffs to keep production of movies in America because, you know, he's tariff happy. He don't care who he charges. And I guess after he found out when that the movies weren't being made in America and they're being made abroad, he don't have any problem. So that may be a saving grace for the actors and the support people of the actors and of the movies and of the shows and of the game shows, because if these executives of these companies had their way, there would be no type of acting business in Los Angeles anymore. So originally, 50 to 75 years ago, Hollywood became big in LA, California. They ventured out to Vancouver, Canada. And I would say the last 20 years, Atlanta has become a film and studio hub as well. But now these big studios are outsourcing the production of the movies to Europe, to Thailand, and Australia. These are the ones that are growing at the fastest rate. And either our American actors have to go over there or they're finding European actors. And it's not just actors. It is support laborers, it is set workers, and it's also writers. And the executives basically move the jobs to save on costs. And according to a lot of actors, LA is an expensive place to live in if you're not working there every day. And it's not just actors, it's the support staff and it's the set workers and it's the writers. These people growing up, knowing that they wanted to leave this profession, they knew they had to move to LA. But now these places are no longer offering the jobs. I'm sure they got to find 2 to 3 piece of jobs just to survive, because LA is expensive. I have here on the right the actor Sterling K. Brown. He is a phenomenal actor, rose to fame from that TV show This Is Us, but he's been in several movies. And this is what made me look into it more, because he was saying he was in Australia, and in addition to his movie, there were 7 other movies being made in that hotel, and was housing the staff of the people working that movie and the actors and the support staff. He also mentioned that game shows are starting to be made primarily in Ireland. Like, where the hell does Ireland come from? Things you don't know, because I'm not an actor. That's not really like my jam. I like the product. I love entertainment, but these people are struggling. And there are consequences for that. What Hollywood did was save money, but they're saving the money at the price of workers. Some other things that I found out is that Paramount is laying off 3.5% of its workers to save their budget, of course, I know, but that has consequences. These people are stuck in living in expensive, expletive Los Angeles, California. Another thing that happened recently, like within the last 2 weeks, is Warner Bros. And Discovery is splitting up after 3 years. So what was that? In 2022, there was Warner Bros. And there was Discovery. Warner Bros. Was movies. Discovery was cable TV. They're splitting back up again and going back to respectively to what they're good at. Warner Bros. Is going to be movies and streaming, and Discovery Plus is going to be cable TV, sports, and cable news. But the thing is, they took on a lot of debt, and that was a bad decision. And because of their bad decision making and them overestimating how much money they're going to make, this is going to have consequences for the workers. Another thing that I found was interesting is I noticed that Netflix is getting into sports. They have a contract with like viewing for NFL. And I think that was smart on their behalf to kind of avoid the fate that Warner Bros. And Paramount is going to have, because Netflix be doing some grimy stuff too, as far as like getting people excited for shows and canceling them. And the entertainment business is in trouble. I do think that other companies other than Warner Bros. And Discovery, they have a lot of debt because they overestimated and they got greedy. And we as the viewers are going to suffer too. Because I honestly believe we have, and this could be biased, but we have really talented people in America. Not to say they're not, excuse me, they're not talented elsewhere, but we've proven we can make really good movies. People want to watch our movies over their movies. So it's just sad, because we're going to have to deal with the consequences of this as well, guys. And the last thing, I always like to talk about gold. Gold is a little bit down. So if I had extra money, this would be a good day. I don't have extra money, but it's down like $20. So, yep. The lowest is still not as low as it could be, but this would be a good day if you had an extra $50 to invest in some gold. And that's it for tonight. Did want to wrap up and say, like, we need to prepare mentally for the world shakeup. Because, yeah, I don't think we're going to be the world leader anymore. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because people in China be living good lives. People elsewhere, the Europeans be living it up. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world. But I think we need to admit what's going on. Can't ignore problems or solutions. It could be a solution for us. Another thing to keep in mind is that keep your job while looking for another. Maybe get a second one. My handle on social media is quit that day job. But that was 3 years ago. Things are different. I wouldn't necessarily advise that right now. Hollyood, not surprisingly, got greedy. So we're going to see how that affects our movies lately. And gold is still up overall. Even though it's down the last 2 weeks, it is still up overall. If y'all have any thoughts, let me know in the comments at the replay, or even in the communication log. But if not, I will see you guys next week. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to put a video up on Thursday. But yeah, as far as the next live show, I will see y'all next week. Thank you, as always, for hanging out, and see you later.